Good afternoon all, I hope you're well. So today I'm going to cover the UK House Price Index for Scotland. In this we're going to cover the economic statement, the price changes that affect Scotland and localised areas, Fife in particular, because that's what we're primarily interested in, sales volumes in the area, so transactions, buyer status as well, so who is buying and where, and how they're funding that. So really good in-depth for you here today. So the first thing we're going to speak about is the overall index summary. So just to give you a show. So if we look at the headline statistics for September, the average price of a property in Scotland was £195,000. The annual price change of a property in Scotland was a positive of 2.5%. The monthly price change for a property in Scotland was a negative at minus 0.2%. But the index figure for Scotland compared to January 15 is 144.8%. So definitely an improvement on house prices overall. So I think that's quite encouraging. So that's the first part of the information share. So I think that's really encouraging. That's the overall statistics for the whole of Scotland. And I'm going to break that down regionally in a moment, and I'll give you some good insight to that. Before I do that, though, what I want to do is basically just give you a bit of a look at what the economic statement was as well. So the average house price in Scotland is said has increased by 2.5%. That is a provisional estimate. So this is land registry information from the end of September. The land registry information does work 2 months, sometimes 3 in arrears. So there is maybe a bit of movement on that, but actually at the moment, still a positive statement. So that's really great news. In the 12 months, and that's the 12 months that have passed from last September 22 to September just now, this was up from 1.9% in the 12 months from August 23. So that's great. And was faster than average UK house prices annual inflation of a negative of 0.1. So I think that was a big surprise to everybody that actually would jump by 1.9% in that month if you look at year on year. So that was a real good positive. On non-seasonally adjusted, so what that's taken into account is house prices in Scotland where maybe perhaps there has been some changes in regards to seasonal adjustments. So how does that impact Scotland? So again, with not all of the full information stats available to us. So they do have to do a bit of an adjustment on that. But what they're saying is overall in Scotland, house prices decreased by 0.2% between August 23 and September 23, compared with a decrease of 0.7% during the same period 12 months ago. So actually that's a positive. I know it's a decrease, but it's a positive decrease, which is fantastic news. On a seasonally adjusted basis, average house prices in Scotland increased by 0.2% between August 23 and September 23. So again, a real positive statement, because we see a lot of doom and gloom out there, don't we? But actually, in the end, it was positive. So that's great news. Looking at property types, so what property types are selling better than others and how is that impacting that percentage? So in Scotland, the detached house showed the highest annual percentage change out of all property types, increasing by 5.2% in the 12 months to September 2023. And the average detached property in Scotland is £358,000. Terrace houses, popular in Fife as we see, showed the lowest annual percentage change, which increased by 0.8% in the 12 months to September 23, to an average price of £164,000. Now, actually, that's a really affordable rate, isn't it, for a great property in Fife? The highest annual percentage change was in East Lothian, where average house prices increased by 15.2% in the 12 months to September 23, to an average of £348,000. The lowest annual percentage change was in North Ayrshire, where average house prices decreased by 4%, and in the 12 months to September, the average price was £127,000. So what we're going to do now is look at the price changes and how does that impact things. So let me just get that slide up. So as you can see here, if we look at the price changes, from September 19, which you can't really see at the bottom because of my ticker tape, but down here we're looking at September 19. So it flows through to get to September 20. As we all saw, we had that massive increase when we went into lockdown, didn't we? So from September 20, which we're sitting about here, it jumps up to March 21 here. Then we're into September 21 is here. Then we go into September 22 here. March 23 is down here, and then we're starting to see it climb back up. It's no surprise in March 23 we saw it drop, did we? Because we had all the fuel issues there. We had the interest rates starting to increase, and how did that impact it? We had mortgage suppliers pulling some of the mortgages, now releasing them more, which is great. So I think that's why we're seeing this steady increase here as well, which is great. So in Scotland, average prices increased by 2.5% in the 12 months to September, which was up from 1.9% in the 12 months previous to August 2023. So that's great. When we look at the annual price changes and how does that impact us locally, what we want to know is what does that look like for us in Fife, don't we? So in Scotland, it's great to know that, but how does that impact me in Fife? So we're going to look at area-specific changes as well. So I'm just going to drop that chart up there for you to have a wee look at. It's quite small writing, so I'm going to kind of try and see if I can give you a bit of an insight to that. So how did it change for everybody? I think the positive for us is while Scotland's averages were lower, in Fife, actually, we're sitting at an increase, a positive of 3.7%. We have some different localised areas here. City of Edinburgh was 3.4% as a positive. Clackmannanshire, 6.9% increase, which is fantastic. East Ayrshire, a decrease of 1.6%. Angus, a decrease of 3.6%, that's sitting at the top there. You look at Dumfries and Galloway, up by 2.2%. City of Glasgow, up by 4.3%. We then go down to North Ayrshire, minus 4%. Perth and Kinross, minus 1.3%. Renfrew, minus 1.8%. So actually, when we look at Fife, an increase still, month on month compared to September 22 to September 23, 3.7% still is an increase in property values. So that's really positive news. And actually quite unexpected, because when we put the headlines on and we see the news, the feeling is that actually it's going to be a decrease, isn't it? And there's that kind of negativeness around it. But to see that year on year from September 22 to September now 23, that we've gone up by that 3.7% is fantastic. So really encouraging actually for us, which is great. So that gives you the area summaries. What we're going to do is look at Scotland and what the average prices look like overall. So I'm going to pop that chart up there for you to have a little look. So you can see here how the map lays it out. So in here, you've got the deep red, which is anything that's kind of average pricing at 230,000 or over, versus 210 to 229, 190 to 209, 170 into 189. So the kind of orangey colour here. And that's where Fife sits in. So Fife at the moment, the average house price in Fife is 180,000. That is really affordable still in the Fife area. So really encouraging to see that. So in September 23, the most expensive area to purchase property, as I said earlier, was East Lothian, when the average cost was £348,000. In contrast with the more affordable areas, which was North Ayrshire, where the average cost was £127,000. But actually, Fife sitting at £180,000 as an average is a really great price point for us, because actually income-wise, when you look at the multipliers, the average salary in Fife is around £32,000. We tend to work on the basis of 6 times. So if you do that, actually very affordable, 6 times the 32,000, that's £192,000. And the properties are sitting on average at 180. So very affordable to live in Fife at the moment. So for me, I think that's really encouraging. So very positive numbers there, and shows actually that property increases in Fife are really benefiting people as well. So what was the average price change by property type? Let's have a look at that as well. So the average price change by property type, interesting for us to have a wee look and see what that looks like. So if you look at the property type, because this is what's interesting for us. If at the moment you're sitting in an apartment and you're looking to upgrade to maybe a terrace or semi-detached, you want to know really what average jump you're going to have there. So as you can see here in property type, from September 23, as you can see there, to September 22, and then the differences between. So detached property, as I mentioned earlier, is where the most expensive property is, and you would anticipate and expect that anyway. So in September 23 over Scotland, it was 358 for your average detached, versus September of 22 at 340. So that's a positive increase of 5.2%. Your semi-detached is sitting at 207,000 versus September last year at 204. So that's a positive of 1.7. Your terraced, 164,000 average in Scotland compared to 163, so a slight increase at 0.8%. And your apartments, masonettes, 133,000 versus 130, so again, a slight increase at 2.1%. If you look at the overalls, it's 195,000 versus September 22, 191, which is still a positive at 2.5. So when you look at that versus Fife at an average of 3.7% increase, it puts us in really good stead here as well, doesn't it? So that's quite encouraging in regards to where the market's sitting, and real positive news, I think, for home buyers as well. What we're going to then look at is what was the average sales volume. So let's have a look at sales volume in the areas as well. Sales volume, what do we mean by that? That's basically your transactions. So this is property sold, money exchanged, keys handed over. And actually that's where we kind of look at the true health of the property market, is what are the transactions looking at and how is that impacting us positively, negatively, because that actually gives us a good idea of the health. Not necessarily how many houses are on the market, but actually how many are completing, money's exchanging, keys handed over. So let's have a wee look at that one. So difficult for you to see on the chart just because of the way that it's laid out here, but if we look at sales volumes and transactions by local authorities, the way the land registry works, as I said earlier on, you have about a 3-month lag. So whilst this is a September report, for the purposes of this, it's actually July's data that we're receiving. So again, really important actually that you understand that. And I'm just going to remove that for a wee second. When we're going out and you've got an estate agent that's coming out to value your property as well, it's really important that they evidence to you the current market value. If they're working back to the July pricing, that's making a big difference to where we are now when you think that we've had a 3.7% increase in Fife at the moment in regards to the average property pricing. If they're going to be going by land registry numbers from July, that's really going to negatively impact you and possibly not give you the accurate amount that your property is valued at. So it's just something to think about. So what we do when we're looking at the Sunday update, for instance, or we're going out and doing the valuations, it's not necessarily what this is telling us, it's what do we know about the market? What are we selling? What are other agents selling? And that gives us really the current day price. But I'm going to just pop that back up and give you a feel for it. All of this information, by the way, is actually on the link to the show, so you can go in and read this at your leisure. The information will be detailed for you, so you can get a bit of a deep dive and look at your areas. But if we compare the provisional volumes and transactions by local authorities, so again, I'm looking at Fife in particular, which is really what we want to know, isn't it? So July 2023 versus July 2022. In Fife, for July 2023, the transactions were 574, so that's 574 properties completed, versus July of 22, it's 629. So there is a decrease. That decrease is 8%. So 91%, just nearly 92% is the percentage compared to the last year. So not a massive impact when you think the overall Scotland picture actually is sitting at 8,046 completed properties in July of 23 versus 9,611 in 2022. So that's a decrease of 16% in Scotland, whereas in Fife what we're seeing is a decrease is about 8.1%. So actually, in comparison to the overall UK and Scottish market in particular, a rather healthy position to be in. When you compare it to some of the areas, if you look at Dundee, for instance, July of 23 was 208 versus July of 22 at 238. City of Edinburgh saw the biggest decrease, 899 properties sold in July of 23 versus 1,125 in July of 22. Nip into areas like Falkirk, for instance, 224 versus 280. If we go into Perth and Kinross, again, quite a big decrease there, 251 versus 328 properties. So actually, Fife is still looking quite healthy when you look at the overall numbers. So that's quite a positive picture as well. So that's quite encouraging, isn't it? So from there, what we're then going to look at is the sales volumes and the property status. So sales volumes, what does that actually mean? So let's have a wee look at what the sales volumes looks like. So this is sales that have sold, basically completed properties over the last 5 years. So you can see here, July of 19, it was sitting at 9,000. July 20, you would anticipate that it would be decreasing because that's when we went into kind of the lockdown situation and nothing could complete. And then we went to the boom time when we came out of lockdown, 10,991. In July, 9,611. And then in July of 23, 8,046 across Scotland. So you can definitely see that there has been a bit of a shift there. But again, in Fife, we're not seeing that decrease. This is Scotland overall. Also, positive picture for us in this area, which is fantastic. So I think that, again, I keep saying these words, but it's very encouraging when we see all this doom and gloom. That's an encouraging picture that we're seeing. Property status. What does property status mean? Basically, what we're looking at with the property status is whether it was new build or what we call existing resold properties. So new build does what it says in the tin. Brand new properties, how many of those are selling versus properties that have sold multiple times. So let's have a wee look at what that looks like in regards to property status. So when we look at the transactions involving the creation of new registries, so again, land registry, you're a bit delayed here. So we're actually working again back from July's pricing, as I said. So if we see new builds, for instance, the average new build property that's selling at the moment is £311,000 even across the whole of Scotland. The monthly change on that is 1.9%. The annual change is 14.8%. So actually new builds across Scotland performing quite well. If we look at existing resolds, so this is properties that have exchanged multiple times, the average price in July over Scotland was 184,000, monthly change of 1.2, and the annual change is minus 1.7. But again, we're not seeing that in Fife. This is a Scotland picture overall, but actually still quite a healthy market, isn't it? When you look at this as a whole, it's still a positive upchange of both combined types of over 12%, which is great. So nice to see that that is actually looking like a positive picture as well. What we're going to look at as well is who's actually buying all these houses. So how does that look and how does that compare? Are we seeing that first time buyer coming to the market? Are we seeing former owner occupiers? So interesting picture to show the health of the market and see how that's changing. So let me just pop that up there for you. So first time buyers versus former owner occupiers. So this is people who've obviously bought multiple times. So the type of buyer, the average price in September for your first time buyer was 156,000. So again, very affordable when you think the average price in Fife is 180,000. So very affordable. The monthly change minus 0.03 and annual change is a positive of 1.8%. So it's great to see those first time buyers coming back out and actually quite encouraging. It looks like the economy is stabilizing a little bit. We've had freezing on interest rates on the last review, which was unexpected. So with cost of living going down as well, hopefully what we might see is actually a decrease in interest charges, and all that can do is make that turn into an even more positive number for the first time buyers, which is fantastic news. Former owner occupier properties, the average price September 23 was 237,000, and that was a monthly change of minus 0.01%, but an annual change positively of 3%. So again, positive news. So I think that gives us some comfort in regards to who's buying, where they're buying, and what they're paying basically. So it'll give you good insight to where that impacts you perhaps. How are they funding this? This is always the interesting part for me. So are they cash? Are they mortgage? What does that look like? And actually, when you understand that, how may that impact you in the decisions that you might take in regards to whether or not you want to sell just now? So let's have a wee look at that one as well. So if we look at the funding status, as I say, cash and mortgage indicators for Scotland. So funding status, the average price September 23 was £177,000 was who were paying cash. That was a monthly change of minus 0.04%, but an annual improvement of 1.5%. So again, a positive change. Who's getting mortgages? The average mortgage for September, 204,000. So again, if you think about Fife, when the average house price is 180,000, that's a positive position to be in, isn't it? Very affordable for us. Monthly change is minus 0.01%, and the annual change is a positive of 3%. So actually, overall, really healthy position. All of this information is available to you. You can actually go on and look at this online. You can see it all on the link. If you've got any questions about this, you might want some answers to it, feel free to message me directly. You can message here, or if you're watching this and follow up later on, message me later. The team will be more than happy to come back to you and help you with any of your questions. But it gives you a good insight to it. It's showing that it's a really healthy market, very positive situation. But I think the headline stats for us to be actually in an annual price change of property in Scotland of a positive of 2.5% and the average price point of 195,000. Fife being 180,000 is a really healthy position to be in, and it's great to see all those positive increases. Yes, transactions are slightly down, but over the piece, quite stabilised market, so that's very encouraging, and actually hopefully good news to come with interest rates as well. And it's Perry at Fife Properties TV. I hope you've enjoyed watching. If you've got any questions, as I say, please do reach out. If you're watching this and follow up, likewise reach out. We will answer your questions. The link to the show is here. If you want to watch it, feel free. If you want to download any information, you certainly can do that. Take care and have a great amount of day. Thanks. Bye-bye.